Dark Fire by Rose Mackey, Book 2 of the Under Violet Sun series. Chapter 14. Road Trip. The Verit ship was like nothing Zera had ever seen. The Odran, the colony ship that had brought the colonists to the planet originally, had been over 100 years old and designed for functionality. Castie was completely alien, designed to move with her subconscious. The Verit ship, the Al-Marai, was a flying palace. Designed to transport Mamon and their personnel, it was luxury personified. The floors were pale polished marble, shot through with veins of dark blue. It looked like sunlight through ice. The walls and ceiling were a gentle pale grey, and the architecture was severe, all right angles and stonework. From inside you could easily have believed that you were in a castle on old Earth. It had some of the same elements of Odran's beloved rooms at the Dathalka clan complex, but refined to the nth degree. From the moment they stepped onto the ship, the Mamon took over. Her aides hustled forward, clucking like hens over her condition, and bundled her into a litter. A junior Mamon imperiously motioned for them to follow, and Zera, Odran and her team were shown to an extensive suite of apartments. Zera watched Odran closely, trying to pick through the emotions that were transferring to her through their unreliable bond. As soon as it had been announced that they would travel to Intgal via a Verit transport, his anxiety had started to rise. She moved to stand next to him as he examined a statuette of the goddess in navy blue marble, spotlit with hidden lights. "I didn't realize you were such a lover of art." He smiled at her absently but didn't respond. "Oh no, this was serious." "What's wrong?" she murmured. He sighed and didn't pretend not to know what she was talking about. "I hate this place. I had forgotten what it was like being here. I am realizing that I feel like a stranger among my own people. What's wrong with it? I mean, the decor isn't to my taste, but—" "Don't make fun of me, Zera." His voice was tight. "I'm not in the mood." "I'm sorry, Odran. I'm just trying to ease you. I don't know how to help." "I know." He reached over and grasped her hand, squeezing gently. "You've never seen us with other Mamon before. On the colony we have a level of freedom unknown on Verit. It's why we want to stay so badly. I know that you Falosians dislike Mamon Frey, but compared to most, she isn't bad at all. She genuinely cares for her people, even if it is a rough kind of love. But the others here, it brings back memories." "I'm sorry, Odran. I can't imagine how it must have been for you. At least this is temporary. A couple more days and we'll be home again." He turned his megawatt smile on her. "Home. I can't believe that planet has become home so quickly." He pulled her towards him to nuzzle her cheek. "Home with my smoking hot, dangerous mate and an alien spaceship to spend my life researching. Bliss. Don't get ahead of yourself, love. You still need the Mamon's permission to mate." He took a deep breath. "Yes, you're right. I will need to negotiate with her for permission. Whatever she wants, I'll give her. You're worth it." When he looked at her, his heart was in his eyes, and Zera found herself unexpectedly blinking back tears. "Oh, damn it, I'm totally sunk. How the hell did you get under my skin this quickly?" He grinned at her. "I'm skilled. Besides, that's what they call me. Quick shot Odran. Quick to hook 'em, quick to—" Zera cracked up laughing as she shushed him. "Excuse me, Videk. I'm sorry to interrupt your moment of levity, but the Mamon has summoned Odran there." A junior Mamon had appeared, silent and elegant like her sisters in her flowing cerulean robes. "Oh, of course, please do." Zera smiled and stepped back. "Is the Mamon feeling better?" The young aide beamed at her. "Yes, milady, thank you for your concern." She spoke to Odran, her face assuming a serious expression. "Please follow me, healer." She turned with a swish of her robes, Odran casting a small smile at Zera as he fell in with the two Verit males assigned to guard the young Mamon. Odran walked through the hallways, feeling as if he was on his death march. When he reached her quarter, the Mamon was propped up against piles of silk pillows in a four-poster bed, tucked in with acres of pillowy comforters. It was quiet in her room, the usual coterie of advisors nowhere to be seen. "Come in, Odran. I wish to discuss something with you." She motioned with a skeletal hand to a seat next to her bed. "Are you feeling all right, my lady?" She coughed rustily, scrabbling in her pocket for a cloth to cover her mouth. "No, as you well know. Perhaps your alien ship can provide some medical miracle for me when we return." "What can I do for you, Mamon?" She studied him, letting the silence draw out between them. "I have noted your bond with Zera." Odran was not surprised. The Mamon saw everything. He didn't reply, waiting to see where she was going. "Do you wish to mate with her?" "Yes, my lady, if you would consent." The Mamon considered, her finger tracing the delicate embroidery of the coverlet. "She is a fine female, strong and willing to make the hard choices when necessary. Others may question your selection, but I see much in her that matches your soul." Odran's heart soared. He couldn't believe that she was considering it. "However, I do not consent, at least not now. You owe me a life debt, Odran. I now call it in." Odran was light-headed with shock. He numbly replied, "What would you have me do, Mamon? Scara is nearly of an age where she must take her first mate." The Mamon sighed heavily. "I have done my best, but she is too soft. A gentle soul. She needs more care, more time to mature. You will offer yourself for Scara's pleasure to be her first mate. Goddess willing, you will father her first child." Odran could not have been more surprised if the Mamon had ordered him to walk out an airlock. "Why me?" The Mamon leaned towards him and reached out a hand to grip his, her voice urgent. "You are a fit male, Odran. The best of us. I have seen to your upbringing myself. You are a healer. You have patience and kindness written in your bones. You will support her during this transition." She sat back, releasing him. "You are also a warrior and intelligent. You can support her and protect her during this dangerous time." "Why now? Mamon do not always take a mate straight away." She cackled bitterly. "I am dying, Odran." She stopped his protests with a hand. "Don't pretend otherwise. Through my own foolishness and arrogance, I am dying." Her eyes shimmered in the dim light with unshed tears. "Unless your alien machine can deliver a miracle, I will meet the goddess soon. I will see both Scara and Bailel protected before I leave this world." Odran couldn't answer. She was right. All of Dinara's treatments had failed. "What of Zera? She loves me. She will never accept this. If she loves you as much as she says she does, she will wait. A Mamon's first contract is only 3 years, 5 if there are offspring. She can wait that long." Odran stood, agitated. "Please don't ask me to do this, Mamon. I love Zera. I barely know Scara. How do you know she would even want me?" "She will do as ordered." The Mamon smoothed her covers, sat up as straight as she could in her bed. "And I am not asking you, Odran. You owe me a life debt. You are ordered." Panic overtook him. He could feel his chance at happiness slipping away. "I won't do it. Anything else, yes, but not this. It would be a betrayal of everything Zera and I have. We have just psychically bonded. She would feel everything. It would be torture for her. The timing is unfortunate with regard to the bonding." The Mamon's voice was measured. "Do not test me on this, Odran. This is my will. If you do not comply, you know the penalty." Odran felt sick. "You wouldn't." "I would. I value you as I do all my males. But Scara is a Mamon, the future of our people. Her safety and continuance must come first. Don't think for a second that I will not use every lever at my disposal." Her eyes were hard as she glared at him. "Now what do you say?" Odran sank to one knee and bowed his head. He had no choice at all. "As the goddess wills it." "Very good," she crooned. "I will make the arrangements shortly. Out of courtesy for Zera, I will let you tell her privately first. You have 2 hours. Odran stumbled to his feet, feeling drunk. How could his life have taken such a sharp turn in so little time? Less than an hour ago, he had a mate that he adored and who loved him back. His fierce, beautiful mate. Now he would have to break her heart. When Odran walked into the suite, Zera jumped up in shock. She had felt his pain, known something bad had happened, but when he appeared, he looked like the walking dead. "Odran, what has happened?" Odran couldn't look at her. He sank to the sofa, his head cradled in his hands. "Are you injured? Tell me!" Zera was frantic. "I'm so sorry, my love, He couldn't find the words to tell her. Instead, he opened his mind to hers, allowing the memory of the conversation with the Mamon to flow through their shared bond. It lasted only seconds before he pulled back, but he felt her stab of pain, of disbelief, and the torrent of her rage. "That bitch, how dare she!" Zera stood, her fists clenching. "I'll murder her myself, save everyone the pain." "Zera, wait!" He reached for her and she smacked his hands away, refusing to allow him to get close. "What, Odran, what?" Zera dashed furious tears away from her eyes. "How could you just agree? What does she have over you? What did you do?" "I owe her a life debt. No more of that shit, Odran. Tell me now, or I'm walking out and never coming back." He sighed and sank down again. "When I was younger, I lived with Lucius and his brothers in the clan house. They were my family unit and I loved them. Lucius was a father, older brother and mentor. He had already made a name for himself as a warrior, as well as a name for himself as something of a rebel. Never enough to get really punished, but enough that they watched him. Too many males looked to him for leadership. He scrubbed his hand over his face. Lucius was seen at a meeting with anti-Mamon rebels. They wanted to reform our society and they were agitating. He hadn't done anything yet, just listened to their talk, but it was enough. I found out that they were going to make an example of Lucius. He was too troublesome, had become too noisy. It was just the excuse they were looking for. They were going to execute him as a rebel. Odran looked at Zera, his eyes haunted. I bargained with the Mamon with the only thing I had, my life. I would do whatever they wanted if they didn't kill Lucius. He was punished instead, whipped and put into reform training. I don't understand, Odran. Aren't you bound to follow their orders anyway? It's not the same. We follow their orders, but there are balances. There are things they cannot order us to do, such as accept a mating. A life debt removes those barriers. I must comply. What happens if you don't? Lucius and his brothers will be executed. The entire family unit will be deemed without honor and expunged from clan records. Anyone that defends me will also be killed. Zera was appalled. What the hell is wrong with your society? Can she even do that? Odran nodded. She can, and no one will stop her. Our own clan brothers would do it, afraid that the dishonor would taint them as well. What can we do? Odran sighed. Nothing, Zera, I'm so sorry, but there is nothing we can do, no loophole. The life debt is simple and absolute. She commands I do or my family will die. Zera sank to the floor in shock in front of him. This isn't happening, it's not possible. He knelt down next to her. It is, Zera. I'm so sorry, but it is. Zera lurched away from him. Oh, goddess, the bond. I'll feel it, feel everything. Feel you with another female. He reached for her and gathered her to him. I will do everything I can to block it. It's only for a few years. A few years? You expect me to do this for a few years? She snarled at him. Sit quietly like a good little female and wait for you. No, Zera, he said sadly. I had not hoped you would wait, only that our pain would finish in a few years. I don't know if I can bear it, Odran. Feeling you with someone else, feeling your pain and hatred of it, it would tear me apart. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Please don't ask me to be helpless to protect the one I love. She gasped out her tears, drowning in her despair. And what if you don't hate it? What if you like it? I will have to sit there, feeling you slowly fall in love with someone else. Odran could only sit there, slowly stroking her back, silent witness to her agony. I promise, my goddess, that I will never love anyone as I love you. And what if I mate someone else? She whispered. Then I will bear that pain as penance for the harm I have caused you. She doubled over, pressed her stomach with one hand, the anguish eating her up from inside, her tears dropping like rain. I don't think I can do this. He curled around her, supporting her. You are the strongest person I have ever met. I am so sorry, but I cannot allow Lucius and his family to die. She shuddered. I know. He kissed her gently, kissed her temples and eyelids, kissed the tears away. My warrior goddess, Al-Marai, I am so unendingly sorry. They lay like that, curled on the floor for a long time, until Zera stirred. She felt like a zombie, like her limbs were not her own. She stiffly climbed to her feet, pushing him away. Please leave, Odran. Please don't send me away, Zera. Rage at me, hate me, let me bear punishment for your anger. He reached for her and flinched when she jerked away from him. She looked at him, fury and hurt and pain and fear churning in her eyes. I need some space to work out how to deal with this. I don't know how I feel. There's a monster inside, tearing me apart. She looked at her hands. I love you, Odran, never doubt that. I know this isn't your fault, but I need an outlet for my anger, and I don't want it to be you. He sank back onto his knees. As the goddess wills it. Zera reached out for him, wrapping her arms around him, and as she did, she wrapped her mind around his. They shared their pain and their anger. I will come and find you once I've processed. I just need some time. He nodded, kissing her gently, and followed her order to leave. Zera did not know how long she sat in her room, wrapped in her pain. Eventually her HUD alerted her that the Falosian delegation had arrived, and she was required to meet them. She dragged herself up, splashed some water on her splotched face, and walked through the vessel to the shuttle receiving bay. She didn't see the beautiful marble or the beautiful architecture. Instead, she saw what the Verit males had been warning her about. The coldness of the matriarchy, the unyielding will and cunning drive to achieve their aims. This vessel was a temple to their ambition. When she reached the shuttle bay, the Mamon and Scara were there before her. She couldn't even look at the females. She could sense the Mamon's satisfaction and Scara's uncertain confusion, but she simply didn't have any emotional energy to give to them. When the Mamon opened her mouth to talk to her, the look Zera sent her was scalding. For a single second, she let the Mamon see the depth of her anger, her desire to stab the other female, that would enslave her own people, before she shuttered her eyes and looked down, studying the marble patterns. After that, the Mamon and Scara kept to their own side of the room, silent, which suited Zera just fine. A gentle chime sounded, announcing guests arriving. The cadet had not told Zera who would arrive, only that it was a senior Falosian representative. Zera's mouth dropped when the cadet herself appeared in the entryway. After a split second, she realized she was incorrect. While this female looked like the cadet, there were some differences. The female before her was softer, lacked the cadet's military bearing, and her silver hair was longer than the cadet's, but the features and the red skin were identical. With her were a group of black-clad security operatives. "Greetings, Videk. I am Stai Delegate Amira Lien. Thank you for meeting me." "Greetings, Stai. I have the details of your quarters here if you would follow me." "Just a moment." The leader of the security team spoke. "You two take point." She motioned to her team. "Videk, pass them the map." With a quick look at the Stai for approval, Zera transferred the map to the other females. "Walk with me, Videk." Zera fell in next to the Stai as they travelled the corridors. The Stai laughed when she saw the decor. "Ah, Verit Mamon, so predictable." They reached her quarters and waited for her security team to clear the rooms before they walked in. "Thank you for greeting me, Videk. Now I have read the briefing pack sent by my sister." She saw Zera's expression. "Yes, Cadet Moral Lien and I are twins. But for now I would like to hear what has transpired in your own words. I want your personal impressions. Beyond that written in the official reports, please sit." "Yes, ma'am." Zera took a seat, arranging her thoughts. "Have you eaten?" "I have not had my evening meal as yet. I'm happy to order some food for you, should you wish to join me." Zera's stomach threatened to turn inside out at the thought of food. "No, thank you, ma'am." "Then please excuse me while I eat." She turned to her head of security. "Please join us for the briefing. The kiss can wait outside." Shock flashed through Zera at the mention of the kiss. The Dagger's Kiss was the most elite of Falosian security forces. They guarded the Lakar and all the senior planetary leaders, so she supposed it made sense that they would run security for the Alliance ambassador. Every female in the Falosian military wanted to join the Kiss. It was the pinnacle of success for their field. The Kiss were bodyguards, generals, assassins, and negotiators. The head of security took off her black face covering and sat on the sofa next to the Stai, and Zera saw the large scar crawling around her neck. She was the famous Dagger Edge, leader of the Kiss. The female was a legend, almost indestructible. "Now, Zera, tell me what has occurred and how you managed to gain us an alien spaceship." Odran rarely drank, but he desperately wished to now. His mind was reeling from everything that had happened over the past few days, and the hurt he had caused Zera was a wound soul deep. He felt like he was bleeding from a death blow he couldn't find, couldn't stem. What was worse, his mind constantly sought Zera's out. He was exhausted by constantly corralling his wayward thoughts. He couldn't give his Zera what she needed, but at least he could give her the space she had requested. As a result, he was in no mood to be summoned by the Mamon, and even less than to walk in to find Scara there. The Mamon curtly informed him that she had advised Scara of their upcoming mating, and that it would be appropriate for him to commence escorting Scara to official functions. "Mamon Zaluda will arrive shortly to represent the matriarch in these discussions. Odran, you will be there as Scara's future first male." She turned her flinty glare on Odran. "Do not shame our clan in front of the matriarch's representative, or it will be the last thing you do." She turned her gaze on Scara, softening. "You may have a few moments together now to discuss the situation before we must begin the official greetings." With a final icy glare at Odran, she turned and swept into her chambers, leaving him and his future Mamon bride in the receiving room. He looked at Scara and felt a reluctant empathy. She had just turned 16, and by the norms of their people she was considered a young female, ready to assume the duties of her clan, ready to mate, but to his eyes she was little more than a child. She was fragile. Scara stood, ethereal and pale, a vision of Verit perfection in her clouds of white hair and pale skin, icy blue robes accentuating the impression of a spun glass sculpture. She raised her head, clinging to her training and poise, and folded her hands to hide their trembling. As per custom, he waited silently for her to speak to him. After an awkwardly long moment, she flushed, belatedly realizing that he could not open the dialogue. She turned to wander the receiving room, fingers absently trailing over the carven stone furniture and knickknacks made of precious gems and shells, casting furtive glances at him, standing still and silent in the center, awaiting her commands. He retreated into Delmalayat, breathing, the bitterness of using the techniques his beloved had taught him to cope with the fear and anger of his mating filling his mouth. He would remain calm, he would not dishonor himself or the clan, and he would not selfishly sacrifice Lucius and his clan brothers for his own happiness. I am gratified that you have accepted the request to be my first mate, Odran Day. I know you have never mated before. It will be easier on both of us that we are familiar with each other. He remained silent, staring straight forward. He had not been given permission to speak. You will make a good first mate. I will be proud to bear the young we create. We may even create a daughter on the first try. Her smile was bright and brittle, fear a flashing fin underneath the surface. The Mamon has chosen well for me. She looked at him expectantly, her smile slipping slightly at his continued stony expression. You may speak freely when we are alone, Odran. Thank you, Mamon-la, he intoned politely. She flashed another smile. You may also call me Scara when we are alone. He bowed his head slightly. As the goddess wills it. She frowned at him. You do not seem pleased, Odran. He didn't respond, and her frown deepened. Speak, Odran. He turned to look at her properly for the first time. You haven't asked me a question. Don't be obtuse, you know well what I am asking. He cocked his head, anger stirring. Dangerous to be angry with a Mamon, the dark stranger whispered. Control. I will not lie to you, Mamon-la. I suggest you not ask questions you do not want the answer to. Don't presume that you know my thoughts, Odran. I am young, not stupid. I asked you a question, now answer. His temper snapped. No, I am not happy about our mating. He turned and paced the small room, venting some of his energy. Is that what you want to hear? You know that I was given no choice in the matter at all. I will follow your commands, Scara, but I will not pretend that this is by my choice. She reeled back as if struck, and he continued mercilessly. If you want pretty words and declarations of love, I have none for you. My heart lies elsewhere, as you well know. He met her eyes, and she looked away, ashamed. I will do my duty. I will not make this any harder than it must be. I can give you no more. Her own temper rose. Duty! You speak as if our time will be unpleasant. I have completed my training. I will make sure that we both enjoy ourselves, never fear that. She moved towards him and placed a delicate hand on his chest. He looked down at her, his eyes hot with anger, and made no move to touch her back. You know that I am bonded with Zera, yet you persist in this. Whatever I must do physically to perform, it will always be a duty. Do not attempt to deceive yourself into thinking anything else. She stumbled back, her eyes misting. Odran, why are you speaking to me so cruelly? This is not you. He cocked his head at her. This is me, Scara. You do not know me. You know the polite facade that I present to patients and to the Mamon. You have never seen the real me. You will not speak to me so disrespectfully. She balled her small fists, her mouth an ugly twist, and Odran felt a warning thrum. There it was, the raw fury of a Mamon, controlling, vicious and cruel. I am not being disrespectful. I am honest. I told you I wouldn't lie to you. Don't ask questions you don't want answers to. He shot back. She sighed. I am not your enemy, Odran. How difficult this mating will be is up to you. Her shoulders slumped. Besides, you act as if I had a choice in the matter. We both danced to the Mamon's song. I also have my duty. She stiffened, shoring up her courage. I will follow my orders, Odran. See that you follow yours. Later that day, Odran attacked the sparring drone with a single-minded vengeance. He whipped around the mannequin, delivering devastating slashes with his knife, supplemented with kicks and punches that came straight from Al-Marai. Augmented with his Verit warrior training, it was a unique style all his own. The meeting with the matriarch's representative had been excruciating. He had been on display like a pony at a show. It had taken all his self-control not to rake the Mamon's face with his claws. As soon as he could escape, he had come to the gym to work out the rage before he hurt someone that didn't deserve it. But thus far, the workout was sharpening the edge of his temper, not helping. The fact that the nanite mannequin just reformed after each slash drove his fury higher, and he roared his anger to the ceiling. He wanted to rend, destroy. The dark stranger had never been so close to the surface before. In his anguish, he released his claws and tore into the training device with his talons and teeth, determined to work out his pain and frustration before he did something stupid, tasting blood as he threw himself again and again at the device. The pain of his wrenched claws a balm to his aching heart. "Your new bride won't like it if you are a toothless male on your mating day," came a voice behind him. He didn't need to look. He had sensed her coming. He could find her anywhere. He snarled at Zera. He couldn't joke about their situation. He felt his gorge rise at the thought of touching another female. She tisked. "Bad kitty, don't take your anger out on me when I came to talk." He snarled at her again. "Who can I take it out on? I did this with my own stupidity. I agreed to a life debt. This is the consequence of my own decisions." "I see. So your solution is to damage yourself? Maybe if you punish yourself enough, she won't want you anymore." "Shut up, Zera. I can't do this just now." She narrowed her eyes at him. "You get one free pass speaking to me like that. Do it again, and I'll knock you on your ass so hard you'll hear ringing in your ears for days." He cut a slashing glance at her and launched another stinging attack at the training dummy. He carved slice after slice off it, so fast his claws blurred, and the nanites grew sluggish, trying to reform quick enough to keep up with him. She frowned, considering him. This boil of pain needed to be lanced before they could talk. "You know what? I think maybe you should try working this out with me." "Go away." He continued slashing at the device. "I gave you space, now I need you to give me some. I'll come find you when I've calmed down." She took off her jumpsuit jacket and dropped it on the ground. Her weapons followed. Next, she removed her combat boots and placed them next to the pile. She stretched her arms up, loosening her shoulders. "Odran." He ignored her. "Odran." He ignored her. "Odran." "What?" "Defend." She launched herself at him, delivering a vicious roundhouse kick at his head that left him seeing stars. "Come on, healer, show me what you can do." Next came a flurry of punches, delivering insulting, stinging slaps at his chest and head. "You want to work out some stress, come on." "I don't want to hurt you, Zera." She grinned fiercely. "What makes you think I'll let you?" He swiped at her half-heartedly with his claws, and she bent backwards, elegantly avoiding his blow, before slapping his hands away. "That was pathetic. I thought all You
want
want
to
to
fight?
fight trained
Fine.
as a warrior." He grabbed for her, pulling her into an arm lock, determined to show the foolish female how much danger she had put herself in, tangling with him when his blood was up. Somehow she twisted around and ended up behind him. She leapt onto his back, wrapping her thighs around his neck, and dove forward, using his own weight to flip him over. He landed with an oof on the floor, all the wind pushed from his lungs. She bounded up, grinning from ear to ear and dancing on the balls of her feet. "Come on, kitty, let's play." He clambered to his feet, his fury moving into something darker, hotter. "Oh, you will regret that," he purred. She laughed, unafraid. "Make me. You're all talk." The game was on. They danced back and forth, trading blows and taunts. It was glorious, and for a few brief minutes, Odran forgot everything else. There was only this female, this incredible female that the goddess had blessed him to know, who was his perfect match in every way. She put up with none of his shit, met the world face on and fearless with an infection's joy. She wasn't afraid of him, or his darker, rougher edges. She accepted him completely. It made him want to scream at the unfairness of it all, that the goddess would taunt him with this vision of perfection, of a vibrant life exploring the world with Zera, only to rip it away from him. No matter how many times he tried to convince himself that it was only a delay, only a few years, he couldn't fool himself. Even he wasn't buying what he was selling. His Zera was proud, his Al-Marai, a goddess in her own right. She would never simply sit waiting for another female to be done with him, nor would he ask her to. She was glorious, incandescent. He couldn't expect that her vibrance would go unnoticed. Many males would wish to bathe in her light. Perhaps that was a fitting punishment for the pain that she would endure sensing his relationship with another female. He would have to sense her falling in love with another male. It was only fair, and the goddess had a finely tuned sense of justice indeed. He missed his next move, his maudlin thoughts consuming him and distracting him, and she landed a punishing blow to his face, splitting his lip open. "Odran, you idiot! What were you thinking?" She rushed over to him, gripping his chin, turning his face this way and that to see the damage. "You aren't meant to actually get hurt. This is just to blow off some steam." He allowed himself to wallow in her touch for a long moment, before reaching up to grasp her hands. "My Zera, my love, I can't do this with you. I love you with everything I am. I can't play with you like this. It hurts too much to see what we could have." Her tawny yellow eyes glistened, filling with tears that she blinked away, stubbornly refusing to let them fall. She didn't try to pretend that she didn't understand. I know. I wanted to give you this time. A last moment before we say goodbye. A good memory to take with you." She pressed a gentle kiss on his cheekbone. "I won't dishonor you or your vow. I will keep my distance. But I couldn't stand to see you suffer." He nodded and pressed a kiss to her fingertips before taking a deliberate step back. He bowed to her, his heart in his eyes, and turned to walk slowly away. Zera stood there watching him as he exited the hall, her heart breaking inside her. She stayed in the gym, sitting on the mats. Her mind was deliberately blank. She refused to think, to feel. It took a long time before she realized she wasn't alone. She looked up as the person held out a hand to her, shocked to see the dagger edge standing there. "Come, sister, let's get a drink. It's too early. It's midnight somewhere, besides, who gives a shit?" She took the offered hand and was hauled to her feet. She followed obediently, her emotions scoured out for now. They ended up in the mess hall. It turned out that they didn't have Lucy, the Falosian standard alcoholic drink, but they had a Verit wine made from cave berries. It was served bitingly cold and was surprisingly sweet. They didn't talk again until they were seated in a small booth. "Is it the male, Odran?" Zera nodded. "He is certainly handsome enough. I saw you sparring with him. He's got some moves." Zera laughed wetly. "That he does." There was a long pause. "I heard what happened. The whole ship is buzzing with it. Apparently calling in a life debt is a big deal. Their baby Mamon couldn't stop gossiping." Zera cursed. "Great, that's all I need. My sex life is public news. You'll be on the cover of Interstellar Titbits next." Zera snorted. "Are you going to go back to the colony?" Zera eyed her. "Why do you care? This is kind of you, but you don't even know me." The dagger edge shrugged. "I hate to see a sister turn herself inside out over a male, and I hate a waste of talent." Zera looked at her inquiringly. "I've had my eye on you for a while, Videk. Expert martial artist, outstanding service record. You've got quite the moves yourself. You took down that male without even breaking a sweat." Zera remained silent, not sure where this was going. "It might be selfish, but it seems to me that this situation presents an opportunity. You could return to that backwater colony, spend the next few years watching the male you've bonded with wait on another female. Or you could consider joining the Dagger Kiss." Zera's jaw dropped. The Dagger Kiss was the elite unit. They performed security services for the Lakar and her most senior advisors, the Styi. Soldiers trained for years hoping for an invitation. Why me? There are lots of officers like me out there. Maybe, but there aren't any others that have successfully bonded with an alien AI. I can't discount the advantage that will bring with you. Aside from your own natural skills, which are not common, despite what you may think, it is a significant benefit. Zera sipped the wine, considering. "When do you need an answer?" "There is no rush. Just mull it over for a bit. The offer is there when you want it." Zera squinted at the dagger edge, the wine fuzzing her slightly. "I do have one question." "Yes? What is your name? Surely your team don't call you the Dagger Edge each time they want something like, 'Hey, Dagger's Edge, can I borrow your shampoo?'" The other female laughed in surprise and cast Zera an appreciative glance. "My name is Lila. For what it's worth, I think you'll fit in just right with us. You'll be surprised how much you'll enjoy it. You know, this isn't even my first job offer this week. Must be something in the air. Lila raised an eyebrow, and Zera pulled herself up in mock pride. I'll have you know the leader of a team of mercenaries thought I was highly skilled. Lila snorted a laugh. Oh dear, that is an attractive offer. How will I ever compete? She fluttered her eyelashes and they cackled, laughing. She patted Zera's hand. Let's talk about something else. I'd love to hear how you got into teaching Delmalayat. Zera smiled at her, grateful for the distraction. Perhaps it was exactly what she needed right now. Well, you see, my mother taught my sisters and I. Chapter 15, Intergal 1. Zera had the feeling that the universe was moving around her, that this moment was momentous. At the small table in the back dining room of the Galatian vegetarian restaurant on an intergalactic trading post, they discussed secession against the Alliance. This is insane, declared Amira. The Stai Amira and Mamon Zalude sat at either end of the table, their advisors arrayed around them. This is madness, the Stai hissed. Even with the dampeners, she whispered, as if afraid of being overhead. You jump at shadows and speak of treason. Perhaps, responded Zaluda placidly. Yet the situation remains the same. Our new colony is under attack. They have attempted to cut off its supply lines, deployed saboteurs that have harmed our people and landed troops. Ah yes, the conveniently mysterious they. We don't deny that someone is attacking our colony. It may even be Svoboda, as Mamon Frey and my sister suggest. But that is a significant step away from an outright alliance conspiracy against us, and a long step away from secession from the alliance. No colony has successfully seceded in centuries. I and the Lakar believe that we are stronger together. We would be together. Falosia, Verit and Colony 29. We would be an alliance of our own. We have the military strength, you have the scientific and financial backing. We would be formidable. We would be targets. It would be open season on us all, and you have not addressed my initial point. You have no proof, only shadows and suspicions. Zalude cocked her head, examining her opponent and potential ally. All right, you agree that someone is targeting the colony. Amira nodded once. And you have noted the testimony from your own sister, Cadet Morale, as well as the interrogation of the security force found on site, that Svoboda is behind it. Amira nodded again. I note their testimony and evidence. We concede that unknown Svobodans are likely attempting to disrupt the founding of our new colony. What more do you need? Amira was succinct. Proof. We need to know if this is a splinter group. Fascists from Svoboda determined not to allow another matriarchal society to form, or if the Svobodan government supports them. Very well. Assuming we can deliver such proof, what else? Amira snorted in derision. Assuming you can deliver. To play out your fantasy, we would also need proof that Svoboda is poised to take over the alliance, and somehow cause us detriment. Mamon Frey's voice was dry. When they kill you in your beds, will that suffice? Perhaps when your daughters are raped and murdered or enslaved, what about then? Frey, Zaluda was gently chiding. She turned back to Amira. Surely you can't believe that Svoboda in charge of the alliance would be good for us. Amira rolled her eyes. Of course not, but there is a significant jump between different philosophies and beliefs, and enslaving and murdering a population, and you assume that the other alliance members would just stand by and let it happen. And in this lovely fantasy land, will we all have tea later? Perhaps cakes? Mamon Frey's voice was caustic, and Zera forced herself to remain expressionless against the urge to smile. Amira turned her glare on Frey. Do not bait at me, Frey. Your own extremist views are well known. I will not be goaded into precipitous action by your dramatics. Frey looked like she had been slapped. What do you propose, Amira? Zalude asked. Information. We desperately need intel to plan our next step. An operation such as the one you are describing will be widespread. It will involve many people. Falosians are excellent at espionage. We will track down the root of this action against us. I will assign the Dagger Kiss to this endeavour. It will be their priority mission. And then? What if your daggers find out the Svoboda is poised to take over? What if there is some plot? What ifs? They are endless. We will deal with the situation at the time. Zaluda leaned in, intent. The matriarch has instructed that I am not to leave here without your answer. Will you join with us if there is a conspiracy? The Stai paused, then straightened, her eyes hard. If there is a conspiracy, if any male thinks to pull us down, We will do whatever is necessary to protect ourselves, our people, and our way of life. We will stand with our Verit allies if need be." She turned to Frey. "But that is not to be taken as carte blanche to drag us towards a crusade of your own design." She looked back at Zalude. Zalude held her eyes for a long moment before nodding once. "It is agreed. Your daggers will locate the truth of this matter, and we will meet again to determine our next steps. If they plot against us, we will join in the fight." Later that night, Lila slipped into the booth opposite Zera, her dark purple curls escaping from her tight braid. "I received our next mission briefing this morning. We are leaving tomorrow." Zera smiled at her vaguely. She had been expecting this conversation. They were all packed up and ready to board the Verit ship back to the colony. She had snuck out for a final trip to the markets before heading back to the colony, but not even a trip to the perfumer had lifted her spirits. She had settled for drinking in a little alley bar. "Have you had any more thoughts on my offer?" Zera blew out a breath and dabbed her sweat-damped palms. Between the dagger's offer and Odran, her mind felt like it was occupied by miniature tornadoes. "Thank you so much, I really mean it. But I'm not ready to just walk away. I love him. Even if I can't be with him, I'm prepared to wait. I'm going back to the colony and I'll give it some time." Lila nodded as if she had expected nothing less. "You can change your mind any time. The offer is open-ended." Her eyes were full of sympathy. Zera stood and hugged the other female impulsively. "Thank you, Lila. I will call you, whatever happens, and let you know." She sniffed slightly. "You could come to the colony for a visit." Lila let out a startled laugh. "Videk, I might be a soldier, but I do not rough it when I travel. Backwater rustic colonies are very low on my priority list." She softened. "But I look forward to your call." Chapter 16. Unexpected Help. The return trip to the newly named colony was the calm before the storm. Zera stayed in her quarters, only venturing out when she had to get food. She took to checking her HUD wherever she went, to make sure that Odran and Scara were not present. She simply couldn't bear seeing them together, and had no desire to hurt Odran further by forcing him to witness her pain. For his part, he kept his side of their bond clamped down as tight as he could. The odd emotion leaked out, but mostly it was still and silent. It was strange. They had only been bonded for a few days, but she had become so used to feeling him with her, to reaching out and sharing an anecdote or joke, or simply a reassuring touch to assure herself he was still there. Arriving back on the colony was another matter entirely. She knew there was no way she could avoid them on such a small planet, and most people had detected their fledgling relationship before they left. Her Falosian sisters would take only a single look to understand what was happening, and Zera suspected the Mamon had grossly underestimated how angry the Falosians would be over the situation. Perhaps she could move to Castie to avoid them. As soon as they had come within range of the planet, Castie reached out to her telepathically. "Zera, you have returned." Its voice was joyful, trumpeting in her mind. "Of course. Did you think I would not?" she asked, surprised. "I am unused to your species. I was uncertain how you mark absences in time." Zera sighed internally. At least someone wanted to be near her. No, she chastised herself, that was unfair. She knew why Odran was doing what he was, and she agreed. It just hurt. "I'm looking forward to learning more about you. We may need to defend this planet together soon. We need to learn how to work together." Zera grabbed her bag as she spoke to Castie. Castie paused long enough that she straightened, waiting for its response. "I am not equipped for military actions, Zera. I have basic defensive capabilities only. I am Castie, not Aria." Zera's interest sharpened. "Aria, that's a military vessel." "Yes, Aria is the name for military vessels." Zera got the sense that Castie was uncomfortable discussing the matter. Only a few were made. They were difficult to bond with. The operators found it emotionally distressing. "We grew beyond Aria long before we left this universe." As Zera telepathed Castie, she headed for the shuttle exit. When she reached the airlock, she found Odran and Scara there before her, waiting to disembark. She couldn't even look at them. She could sense Scara sending her furtive, anxious glances, but she refused to look at the Mamon. She had no emotional energy left for the female. The Mamon leaned heavily on her cane as she shuffled down the ramp into the pale sunlight, Odran and Scara trailing her. Her own mate, Prime Brune, and Lucius waited to greet her. "Welcome home, Mamon. How did it go?" Lucius inquired with a bow. "Well, First Warrior, we have reached many decisions. I will share them all when we next meet in council. For now I wish to return to my quarters, shower and rest in my own bed." The Prime smiled down at his wife, his concern for her frailty lurking behind his eyes, and offered her his arm. "Scara, attend me," she called. The young Mamon cast a bright smile at Odran and trotted obediently after her mentor. For the first time in days, Zera stood with Odran alone. She couldn't look at him, could barely breathe. She felt like she was held together by the thinnest threads. One wrong move and she would spill out in every direction, blow away in the wind. Lucius embraced Odran, overjoyed at his return. "Odie, welcome back, and you, Zera." He offered his forearm in greeting in the manner of warriors. "I can't wait to hear all about your trip. Come and join Denny and I for a meal tonight. She would love to see you both." Odran's jaw tightened, a vein pulsing in his temple. He dredged up the ghost of a smile and spoke to Lucius, still not looking at her. "Apologies, Luke. I have other matters I need to deal with." He turned on his heel and strode off, leaving a stunned Lucius staring after him. Luke turned to her, eyes wide in surprise. "Is there something I need to know?" She shrugged. "You need to ask Odran." He scowled at her. "Nice try, Zera. You should know me better than that. Tell me what's going on." She remained silent, unwilling to get involved, and Lucius softened. "Please, Zera. I care about him. I just want to know if he needs help." Looking into Lucius' beseeching eyes, she couldn't remain aloof. She reached out to Odran through their bond. "You absolute fucking bastard! How dare you leave me to do this?" His reply was instant, contrite, and full of self-loathing. "I'm sorry, my Dalat. I can't bear to have him disappointed in me. I know I'm a coward, but I can't tell him. I just can't." She took a deep breath and turned back to Luke, still standing, awaiting her reply. She trailed off. She did not know how to say it. "Odran. The Mamon has decreed that Odran and Scara will mate. He will be her first male. They will mate after Scara completes her Mamon ceremony in 3 days' time." Lucius's jaw dropped, and for a split second Zera saw the anguish in him, before he shuttered his expression. "I'm sorry, Zera. I thought before you left that you and he had an understanding." He looked so sorrowful and awkward that she couldn't look at him. She turned away, blinking back tears. "We did. The Mamon has ordered him and he complies. There is no other option." Lucius growled. "There is always an option. The Mamon may control our lives, but we are not slaves, not in this." Lucius almost spat his words, his claws extending, looking for something to rend in his rage. "Why would he agree to this? Why?" Zera couldn't meet his eyes. She almost whispered her answer. "Because he owes her a life debt." The words fell like lead between them. "Say that again," he growled. "He has a life debt! Didn't you hear me, First Warrior? The male I love has a life debt. If he doesn't do this, your life, Dinara's life, your brother's lives, they are all forfeit." She glared at Lucius. "He does this for you!" she screamed at him. "He does this for you!" Lucius held his hand over his chest like she had stabbed him as she continued, jabbing at him with her words. "I hate you. I hate your fucking culture, your manipulative bitches of the matriarchy, all of it. I wish I had never come here, never met you." Lucius reached for her, gathered her into a bear hug while she struggled against him, uncaring of who saw, battering her fists against his chest. "It's all right, Zera. I'll make this all right. I'm sorry. Shh, it'll be all right," Lucius crooned, letting her cry against his barrel chest. Before long she felt another presence, Dinara stroking her hair. When she looked up, wrung dry from her tears, Dinara stood next to her, her small arms encircling Zera and Lucius while she hummed gently. Dinara wove a gentle spell of healing over her, wrapping her in strands of empathy and care. "It's all right, Zera. Come on, come with us. You need to rest. We'll sort this out later." Dinara held out her hand and took Zera's, and Zera walked behind her like a child, uncaring or unseeing. Zera allowed herself to be taken wherever Dinara wished, and put into bed, drinking the large glass of Lucy Dinara left for her before falling into a dreamless sleep. At some point she heard Lucius arguing, but she rolled over, unable to face whatever drama was now rolling in. She was absolutely spent. She had nothing left emotionally. The next morning Dinara came into her room, bringing her a tray with a bowl of fruit, toast and a caffeine drink. "Come on, time to get up. Eat something while we talk." Zera dragged herself up, noting that she was in a small room off the medical bay wearing a medical gown. "Why am I in medbay?" "Because you were pretty out of it, and I was on night shift last night and wanted to keep an eye on you." Zera nodded, accepting the tray and starting on the sliced fruit. Want to talk about it? Not really. Okay. Zera eyed Dinara suspiciously. In the month on the colony, Dinara had become her closest friend, and she never gave up without a fight. Just okay? She asked. Dinara's eyes crinkled in response. Just okay, you've clearly been through a rough time. I won't add to it, but I'm here if you want to talk. Zera nodded, picking up her toast. Did I hear shouting last night? Dinara laughed. Yeah, Lucius had a little chat with the Mamon. It didn't go well. Zera paused mid-bite and raised an eyebrow expectantly. He couldn't get the decision overturned. I'm sorry, Zera. The tiny bubble of hope that had started to rise burst in her chest. It's all right, it's Odran's choice. I understand it, even if I don't like it. The males are furious, as are the Falosians. This hasn't won the Mamon or Scara any favours. It's blackmail, coercion and slavery, however you look at it. Zera's composure broke. I don't know how to do this, Denny, she whispered. I love him. I can't watch him be with another female. Can't feel him be with another female. It'll destroy me. Then stop it. I can't, cried Zera. How do you know? Have you even tried? Dinara shot back. You think it's that easy? This is their whole damn culture. Your life, Lucius and his brothers' lives, they are all on the line. I didn't say it would be easy, Zera, but can you live with yourself if you don't try? Zera glared at Denny, then slumped, deflated. I don't know what to do. I've racked my brains, but I just don't know. And I don't know if I can stay. Where would you go? Zera pulled herself together, scrubbing her face. The dagger kiss offered me a position. The offer is open-ended. Dinara reached over and gripped her hands. Well, if you can't stop it and you can't watch it, maybe you should take the offer. Don't destroy yourself and your life like this. You have so much to offer. Zera nodded. I won't, but I need to see for myself that he is happy with her. And there's Castie. I want to work with it, learn everything I can. And if he isn't happy, if he is miserable and misses you every day, and there is nothing either of you can do about it, if he breaks his vow because he can't bear being without you and causes the deaths of those he loves, how will that feel? Zera shook her head, trying not to hear her. Dinara continued implacably. And what if he is happy? Plenty of arranged marriages turn into love. What if you sit here alone on this backwater colony, watching him, feeling him love another female? No other species can understand the pain that an empath feels, watching those we love, feeling those we love, not love us back. Love another. Will you reject all other opportunities for happiness, pining for a male that has chosen another? Zera could feel the pity pouring off of the other woman. It burned like acid. At this stage, I think nothing can stop this. The Mamon have complete authority over matings, their own and everyone else's. Dinara stilled. Say that again. Zera's brow furrowed. What? Say that again. I said that the Mamon have complete authority. Zera stammered, confused, and Dinara corrected her. No, you said that the Mamon have complete authority over their own matings. Well, yes, but I don't see how that helps. Scara is Mamon-la, not a full Mamon. Not yet, replied Dinara. Zera pondered, turning it over in her mind, trying to see what Dinara had when it clicked. She grinned and lunged over the tray to engulf the healer in a fierce hug. Dinara laughed, hugging her back. Whatever you are thinking, Zera, be careful. This is done, announced. It won't be easy taking this back. Not everyone will come out of this clean. Zera's eyes glowed citrine in the light as she worked out the plan in her mind, and Dinara tapped her on her nose to break her train of thought. Whatever you do, don't hurt that child. She is as much a victim as he is. We'll see. Zera stood and began pulling on her clothes. As she did, she spoke to Dinara over her shoulder. You know, he calls me Al-Marai, his warrior goddess. She's the Verit goddess of passion, justice, and vengeance. Let's see how justice feels. Scara stiffened when she saw Zera walking towards her. I have nothing to say to you. Scara was standing in the doorway of her unit, looking extremely uncomfortable. Don't worry, I'm not here to berate you. I'm sure you are doing enough of it yourself. Zera tried her hardest to convey quiet patience. Please leave. I need to talk to you just for a moment. I have a question. Scara looked around, as if expecting someone else to appear to assist her before she sighed heavily. Fine. 5 minutes, no more. Zera walked into the small unit, identical to her own. She sat at the small table, then immediately stood up. She had too much energy to sit just now. Scara arranged herself elegantly on the other chair, her silk skirts floating around her. Zera looked at her silently for a long moment. "Do you really want to do this?" Scara hissed and shot up. "Go away now." "No, wait. Answer my question, please. Is this what you want, truly?" Scara folded her arms. "I will do my duty." "Answer the question. You are destroying my life and his. If this is what you want, he will submit. He has no choice. His family's life is forfeit. You will have to live with forcing him into a mating that he doesn't want." Scara was shocked. "I will treat him well. He will not be harmed. How dare you suggest he will suffer in my care? It is against the Alliance Declaration of Sentient Rights to force anyone into a mating. There is no force. He does this of his own free will," she shot back hotly. "On pain of murder, of Dinara, Lucius and his brothers. Sounds like coercion to me." Scara stood. "Your time is up. I want you to leave, now." Zera backed up, giving Scara space. "I ask you again, is this what you want? Or are you doing it because you were told to, like a good little Mamon?" Despite her best intention to talk to Scara calmly, she couldn't keep the bitterness out of her voice. "Leave, now!" Scara's voice was shrill. "Or I will call security." "I will when you tell me the truth." "No, damn you no. Is that what you want to hear? No, I don't want to be mated to a male double my age. Don't want to be a Mamon with males' lives in my hands. I hate it," she screamed. "I have as little choice as Odran does. At least he is kind and gentle as far as our males go. I know him a little. He's not a stranger. He is the best choice I have." "Why do you have to make a choice? Why can't you just say no?" "It is tradition. I must obey the Mamon." "I thought you were a Mamon, or you will be tomorrow. I thought Mamon chose their own mates, that no one told a Mamon what to do or where to go." Scara was furious, the tears spilling over her cheeks. "I am a Mamon. No one tells me what to do." "Then release him. Make your own decisions. Get out, now." Zera bowed mockingly. "As the goddess wills, Mamon." She heard Scara scream as she left, whether in rage or anger she was unsure. She stepped outside, moving around the back of the accommodation units. When she was hidden from view, she shuddered, dropping to her knees. She took deep, gulping breaths as the tears fell. Whatever happened now, she had done all she could. It was up to Scara whether she was strong enough to make a different choice and free them all. That night she went to Castie. All it took was a thought. "Castie, can you send a shuttle for me, please?" "Certainly. However, my teleport capabilities have regenerated. If you wish to travel just yourself, I can teleport you." Zera's heart squeezed at the thought, excitement warring with sadness that Odran was not with her to experience this marvel. "Yes, please, I'd like to be teleported." The world swam around her, and she was standing in the control room on Castie. "That was incredible. I thought there would be disorientation or movement, but it was so smooth." "Of course, my purpose is your comfort." It went quiet. "I can sense you are distressed. What can I do to ease you?" Zera shrugged. "I don't think you can, Castie. Some things can't be eased." "I understand." Castie's voice was incredibly gentle. "I feel the loss of my previous locus. I cared for the locus for nearly 300 years. Castie are bioengineered, we feel. The loss is difficult to process." Zera felt her heart go out to Castie. It was so alien, but some things like love and family were universal. "I'm sorry for your loss, Castie." "Thank you, Zera." Zera moved aimlessly through the ship after that, wandering wherever she wished. There were many chambers, most of which she didn't recognize the function of. Eventually, her fatigue caught up with her. One night of sleep was not enough to fix the days of stress and emotional exhaustion, so she found herself back in the rooms that Castie had created for her. It still resembled Odran's childhood bedroom, which paradoxically both hurt and made her feel close to him. She moved to the viewing window, looking down at the underground lake below. "Could I go down and swim if I wished?" "Not in this chamber. I do have swimming areas, but they are several levels down. I can create you a bath if you wish." Zera brightened. "That would be wonderful. I haven't had a proper bath in months." Castie binged gently, and she turned around to see the large carven depression in the rock floor filled with water. It was deep, coming past her waist, and big enough for 10 people. She shucked out of her clothes and slipped into the warm water with a sigh. She floated on her back, letting her hair fan out around her, as she contemplated the conversation with Scara. She honestly wasn't sure if she had helped or hindered the situation. All she knew was that if she hadn't tried, she would have regretted it for the rest of her life. When it came time for the mating, Zera stood at the back of the assembled colonists, near the edge of the courtyard. The colonists had been shocked by the marriage announcement, but had done their best to make the area festive. Native flowers and garlands of green and purple leaves had been used to decorate the courtyard. They had dragged chairs and tables from the mess hall out to form a semicircle around a central fire where the actual ceremony would take place. The males had built a square, stacked bonfire, and little pots and baskets of herbs were laid on a table next to it, ready to be thrown in. The sun was setting. Everything was ready. All they were waiting for was the Mamon. Over the past 2 days, Zera's hopes had gradually dropped. As word spread in the colony, a strange, wary silence had fallen. The Falosians were appalled at the turn of events, and their collective emotions had harmonized to the point that even the Verit colonists could feel their displeasure. When Falosians agreed on something, it was palpable. For the males, they were horrified. Zera could feel their hope dwindling. The fledgling excitement that this colony presented an opportunity for a new way of life, slowly being crushed under the reality that another of their brothers was forced into a mating he did not want. The knowledge of Zera and Odran's relationship and bond only made it worse. It was quite literally a nightmare come alive for them, to find a female that they adored enough to want to bond with, only to have it snatched away by a machination of the Mamon. Scara had barely been seen. Whenever she had entered a room, the atmosphere was icy. The males were formally polite, but Zera had never heard "yes, Mamon" sound so much like "fuck you" before. Zera had poured everything she had into blocking the bond with Odran. He was doing the same to protect her. His emotions were there, just out of reach, and as she watched him standing next to the fire, Lucius at his side, grim as death, she held herself in iron control to prevent her from reaching out and connecting, even for a second, just to make sure he was okay. She was terrified that if she sensed distress from him, she would kill everyone that stood in her path to take him away from here. He had made his wishes clear. He wouldn't go. He would not sacrifice his family for their love. In the clear light of day, Zera was honest enough with herself that she would never let him sacrifice them either. If she was the type of female that would ask him to do that, she wouldn't be worthy of him in the first place. Right now, though, as the sun set and the fire was lit, that clear-sighted female was very far away. She felt a hand slip into hers and turned to see Dinara standing with her. "I'm glad you came back, sister. We were worried about you." "I went to stay on Castie. I needed to be away from it. I couldn't see them plan all this." Dinara nodded. "I have you, sister. Just hold on." Zera gripped the offered hand tightly and blinked back tears. "Should you be here? Why torture yourself?" Zera shook her head. She could not leave. "I bear witness." Dinara said nothing else, just wrapped her other arm around her and held on tight. Scara, the Mamon, and Bailel appeared out of the darkness, clad head to toe in silver. They wore dark grey coats with elaborate curled collars that framed their faces, falling to the floor in heavily embroidered layers. Over their coats they wore silver filigree chainmail that conformed to their bodies. The Mamon and Scara both wore heavy diadems in silver metals, studded with blue and white gems. Scara's white hair was woven in and around hers, with threads of pale pink and white pearls woven throughout. It dawned on Zera that she had rarely seen the Mamon without some sort of headdress, and that they must have a cultural or rank signifier for Mamon. Scara was now a first-level Mamon, no longer a trainee La, and therefore able to wear a crown. Mamon Frey leaned heavily on a silver-tipped cane as she walked, but her expression remained imperious as ever. Zera controlled her own expression, clamped down on her emotions against a surge of jealousy. Scara was lovely, like the first breath of air on a winter morning. She glowed with health and happiness. Zera could never hope to compete. She was a solider and happy with herself. But what male wouldn't want this stunning female over her? Odran whipped around to look at her, and she realized that she hadn't been as successful as she had thought in blocking her emotion. He must have caught her surge of jealousy. Deliberately, she nodded her head ever so slightly towards the approaching Mamon. He held her gaze for a single agonizing instant, his heart in his eyes before he opened the bond to her. She gasped as she was swamped in his emotions. His anger at the situation, despair at what he would face, guilt for her pain, a thread of hurt that she would think so little of him that he would wish for Scara over her. But over it all, love. A roaring, vicious tsunami of love and want and need that threatened to drive her to her knees. It wrapped around her in chains, tiny hooks embedding itself in her psyche so deep, she knew that his love would be with her through all the years of her life. She would never be able to rip it out, never doubt how he felt. Only Dinara's supporting arm kept her upright, as he gave her a single, piercing last glance before turning to the Mamon, his expression shuttered and cold. Scara's steps faltered when she saw him, and when she saw Lucius, his expression like stone. She approached and stood next to Odran before the fire, her gaze roving over the assembled colonists. There was no love there, no support. Their disbelief and anger was a taste in the air. Mamon Frey moved to stand between them, raising hands wrapped in gold cords to the fire. We stand before the goddess to witness the bonding of Mamon Scara and Odrando. Scara has chosen Odran as her first mate. He has the honour and joy of protecting and supporting his living goddess through her first steps as an adult Mamon, and offering his seed so that the future of Verit may continue. The Mamon held out a hand to Odran, who placed his in hers without comment. He might have been made out of living marble. He gave away so little emotion. If not for Zera's connection with him, she would have thought him entirely unaffected by the ceremony, an aloof winter prince marrying his princess. The Mamon wrapped Odran's wrists and hand in the cord over and over until the cord covered his hand and arm like a shimmering gauntlet. She held the tail out to Scara. Mamon Scara, this male offers himself for your pleasure. Do you find him fit and worthy? Do you accept him as your first mate? The world seemed to hold its breath. Scara cast a furtive glance around the assembled colonists before landing on Odran. He smiled at her gently, understandingly, willing to sacrifice himself to her will, to save those he loved. She stiffened and raised her chin, looking every inch the arrogant ice princess. No, Mamon. Frey spun around, nearly falling in her haste. What are you doing? Scara looked at her mentor. No, Mamon, I do not find him fit or worthy. He is unsuitable as my first mate. Deliberately, Scara dropped the cord and turned her back on him. Scara, she hissed. This cannot be taken back. Think about this. Scara glared at Frey. I have thought about this. I shall select another in due course, as is my right as a Mamon. She turned to the colonists. Thank you for this lovely evening. Let's not let it go to waste. Please enjoy the celebration. She looked into the darkness. Talaksar, I request your escort for the evening. She held out a delicate hand. There was a long pause as Tarlak stood in shock before Peyton elbowed him ungracefully. Tarlak nearly tripped over his own feet, coming to stand next to her. He bowed low. As the goddess wills, my lady. Odran hadn't moved. He stood there silent and in shock as the world moved around him. Luke turned to him. Come on, Odie. I think you need to sit down. He grabbed Odran's arm and pulled him to the side, where Odran thumped down into one of the chairs, shaking. Slowly he looked up and their eyes locked. The bond opened in a rush and his emotions swamped her. Confusion, love, fear, pain. It swirled in and around him and threw the bond to her. Zera unfroze to run to him. She skidded to a stop in front of him, reaching her hands out to grip his face. My love, are you all right? Zera, he whispered numbly. Zera! He whooped and stood, grabbing her and swinging her around in a high circle. Zera, my Dalat! He hugged her to him, and she felt his desperation, the incipient panic, the aftermath of the adrenaline leaving him hollow and shaking. It's all right, Odran, I'm here, she cooed as she stroked his hair away from his face, so that she could pepper kisses all over it, desperate to get as close to him as possible. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. You stupid bitch, this is your doing. Frey spat at Zera. His blood roared in his ears as Odran pulled Zera behind him, hiding her bodily from the furious Mamon. A part of him noticed Zera did not want to be hidden, and was squirming away from him to face the Mamon. Zera was furious, angrier than he had ever seen her. Have a care, Frey. I am not one of your baby Mamon that you can order about, and I have no problem putting you on your ass to teach you a lesson. The Mamon snarled at Zera. You stupid bitch, you've ruined his life. Once a Mamon declares a male unfit, no other Mamon will take him ever. It cannot be undone. Years of effort in his training just to throw it away. Zera stared at her incredulously. You can't be that stupid. Do you honestly think he wants another Mamon? We are bonded. He is my mate. It's done, and it's got nothing to do with you. He owes me a life debt. He will pay it one way or the other. My debt is repaid. It is done when I say it is done. And you did. Your words were specific. You will offer yourself for Scara's pleasure to be her first mate. I did, and Scara did not want me. My debt is fulfilled. The Mamon snarled at him, her face twisted with rage. I am Mamon. My word is law. Your life is mine to use as I see fit. The male is correct. Out of the shadows moved Scara. He has met the terms of the bargain to the letter. Mamon Frey released her claws, hissing as she turned to Scara. I took you into my home, trained you, and this is how you repay me. You haven't even been a Mamon for a full day, and you think to defy me. Scara flushed with anger and a little fear. You taught me well, Mamon. I am strong and I will do what I think is best. That does not include binding a male to me that is already bound to another. I will not allow our people to continue with this slavery under the guise of respect. I will find a new way, my own way. I will not become another you. Frey looked as if she had been struck. Scara looked over her shoulder and Bilel appeared to stand by her. The Falosians have shown us much over the past months. Be honest, Mamon. Look at Lucius and Dinara. Can you honestly say that you don't want that? That you would not wish for a male to adore you that much? That you need never fear for your safety? The Mamon shook her head, her face drained of colour. What have I done bringing you here? My daughters, they have poisoned you. They have opened our eyes, Bilel corrected. You will destroy us, our people, and our way of life. Scara sighed, her face compassionate. We're already dying, Mamon. That's why this colony exists. We need to evolve to survive, not cling to the past. It is time to move beyond our fear of what we were. You are an idiot. You do not know what you are doing. Scara raised a delicate hand and Bilel captured it. We will see, Mamon. We hope you will stay with us on the journey. The Mamon screamed her rage and clutched at her chest, doubling over in pain. Immediately her mate was there to support her. My lady, you must rest. I'll rest when I'm dead, she spat. If you don't rest, you will get your wish soon enough, responded Dinara, emerging from the crowd. Come, Mamon. Return to Medbay with me. No, get off of me, witch. I want no more of your incompetent poking and prodding. Mamon, I will give you a trade. Zera stepped forward, her body full of tension. In exchange for the grievous insult you think I have inflicted on you and your people, I offer you a trade. She clenched her fists, willing her heart to stop racing. She had a crazy, wild idea. If it worked... The Mamon sneered at her. What could you possibly have that I want? To live, Zera replied simply. Castie has advanced medical facilities. If you set this aside now, I will ask Castie to heal you. Everyone around them stilled. Zera, what are you doing? Odran whispered in her mind. You don't even know if Castie can heal her. I'm gambling, she replied. Castie, can you do this? I believe so, Zera. Bring her on board so that I can do a detailed scan. Castie says it wants us to bring you on board to do a detailed scan. It believes you can be healed. The Mamon leaned heavily on her mate's arm. Even in pain and haggard, she was formidable, her icy gaze examining Zera's face, looking for any indication of treachery. Zera felt her own ire rising. Even when offering an olive branch, this female couldn't help fighting. Her temper snapped. You have this one chance, Mamon, an opportunity to live, to put this enmity behind you. Decide, will you cling to your pride and traditions as you die, or accept the new way before you and the opportunity for life that it offers? The assembled crowd was silent, waiting on the response from their diminutive Ice Queen. Very well, I accept. You must state it aloud. Swear that you will seek no retribution against me, Odran, or Scara for this, that you will embrace our blending of traditions. I will seek no retribution, she ground out. She remained stubbornly silent as everyone waited with bated breath for more. Odran barked a laugh. I guess it's better than nothing. He looked at her, pleading with her to take what the Mamon had offered. Slowly, reluctantly, she nodded. Castie, Zera spoke aloud for the others' benefit. Transport myself, Odran, and the Mamon to the Medbay aboard ship. The planet dissolved around them, and they found themselves in the shining Medbay. The entire room was an incongruent pale pink, shot through with shimmering gold fibres. As soon as they appeared, the pink floor around the Mamon rose up to encompass her form, wrapping her in layers of fibrous pink wefts. When the first strand touched her, she closed her eyes. I have administered emergency pain medication and a sedative, Zera. This individual was in significant medical distress. Odran let out a shuddering breath, running his hand over his hair in stress. Thank you, Castie. Please complete the scan. I already have, Odran, came the calm reply. Odran laughed aloud. I should have known. What was the result? I can correct the genetic errors in her system. The treatment is simple. The treatment will take several hours. I will keep her sedated until then. Odran turned to Zera, his heart in his eyes. Beloved, I don't know what you did, but... He raised a shaking hand to touch her cheek. I know that I have you to thank for this. She gripped his forearm and drew him down to press his forehead against hers. I had to try. I knew I shouldn't interfere, but I would never have forgiven myself if I didn't try. I love you, my Zera, my Dalat. I love you, Odran. I hope you are happy because you are stuck with me forever. No other Mamon will have you. Zera was filled with guilt, that in her desire to save him she had ostracized him from his people. He laughed softly, like another female could compete after you. My warrior goddess, I want no other. She looked at him archly. You know, we have several hours to kill. Want to see the new bath I made up in our room? She winked mischievously. It's big enough for 10. He pulled her towards him and kissed her thoroughly. I'll go wherever you wish to lead, lady. Chapter 17. His and Hers Futures. Odran carried the picnic basket as they reached the top of the hill. Zera laid out a blanket, and they chatted about everything and nothing as they set out their snacks, casually passing the bottle of wine back and forth. It was normal and perfect, and she still couldn't quite believe it was real. Between them, the bond sat quietly, warm, like a banked fire in the back of their minds. Zera had realized over the past few days that it had settled. She need only reach out and touch it, and she would be instantly connected to Odran. She found herself reaching for it multiple times a day, just the most fleeting of touches, to reassure herself that he was there. He was all right. She kept having flashes of anxiety, of adrenaline, as if her system hadn't quite worked out that it was safe again. Odran pulled her down to sit next to him as they watched the forest rolling below. They were an hour south of the colony in a beautiful clearing. The clearing surrounded a hill and was dotted with pretty flowers of all colours, and towards the colony they could see a new shuttle landing in the distance. Castie was still there, hovering above the colony, invisible from view. The forest rolled away on one side of the hill, and the other was an overlook that flowed over the river to the colony. He passed her a cracker with some cheese and laughed aloud when he looked behind her. Emerging from the forest, chattering, was the small creature that she had befriended at the crater site. It loped up the hill to them, chattering at her, and she caught the psychic images that it sent. She hadn't seen it since before the ship transferred here. Apparently it had taken the long way, travelling overland to find her. Its mind was filled with the simple joy of being with her until it spied her cracker. Extending its long neck, it delicately sniffed the offering. Here you go, little bandit. It happily took the cracker in its front paws and moved a few steps away to nibble on its prize. I think you have acquired a pet. Maybe he's very intelligent. She accepted a second cracker from Odran, replacing the one she had given to the creature. What made you choose this spot? How did you find it? Zera asked. Odran smiled secretively. I've been checking out the land parcels that the colony planning team has been setting aside for colonists. With more soldiers and researchers landing soon, I thought I might stake my claim on one before the good ones were gone. He paused. What do you think? Zera was breathless. Really? This is your claim? Her voice was hushed. It's stunning, Odran. Truly beautiful. Where does it extend to? He pointed out the boundaries. The 300 scree claim included a section of river and a bay suitable for a small jetty, the hill they were sitting on, and a decent chunk of grasslands and a chunk of forest. I was thinking of building my house on this hill. It's got gorgeous views. Zera nodded as they watched the shuttle take off and another queue behind it to land. It's beautiful. Will you stay here with me? She quirked an eyebrow at him. I suppose it'll do. She looked around. Although my allotment may be nicer, perhaps I should have a think about it. He tackled her to the ground, rubbing noses with her affectionately. Maybe you should take the allotment next door. We could be neighbours. She laughed. We could at that. She ran her hands through his long braids. He pulled back to look at her seriously. Will you mate with me, Zera? She rubbed her nose against his again. I thought we already did. Properly. The ceremony, a big party, the works. She pushed him off to sit up. I don't know, we don't have the same concept of mating as you do. When you say you want to mate, what do you want? He heard the vulnerability in her tone. Love, commitment, being together. If you want them, raising our children together. For how long? He frowned. For always, forever. That's an enormous commitment. The standard alliance agreement is only 3 years. What if you get sick of me? I'm pretty annoying, you know. He laughed. Don't you think that ship has left the shuttle bay already? We're psychically bonded together by an ancient alien. You're worried about living with me for 3 years. Well, when you put it like that, she sighed. What if I don't want to stay here? The dagger kiss gave me an open offer for a position. Once the colony is settled, there won't be much work for a professional soldier. Or if Castie needs to go somewhere, I will need to go too. Then I'll go with you. Healers can get work anywhere. He laced his fingers with hers. But I want this to be our home. She looked at him, gripping a braid to pull him towards her. Deal, Odran. Whatever we do, we'll go together. In that case, he pulled out his laser knife and grabbed the braid she was holding. This is for you. He sheared off the braid and handed it to her. Odran, are you nuts? Why would you do that? It's how Verit males show they are mated. Zera pondered the braid in her hand. All right. She pulled her own thick tail in front of her and took the knife, slicing off one of her braids to give to him. The end. Afterward, thank you for listening, all. I am an indie author and reviews mean the world to us, so if you enjoyed this audiobook, I'd love it if you could leave a review here. Ebook and print books are available on Amazon, and the full unabridged audiobook can be purchased at rosemackie.com. If you want to share on social media, I'd love it if you can tag me at @rosemackie_author on Facebook, Insta or TikTok. If you really loved it and want to read more, check out rosemackie.com where you can sign up for my newsletter to hear about future books. No spam, I promise. You'll get access to extra scenes, free novellas, and be the first to hear about new releases. Dark Fire by Rose Mackie, Book 2 of the Under Violet Suns series.